On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, we have got the Mississippi State recap. We're doing recaps a little bit differently now, since obviously, our show comes out a couple of days after the game. So we just picked 5 main points that we kind of thought about as we digested the game a little bit. So we got 5 takeaways from the Mississippi State game. We'll go through each one of them, and that'll kind of be our just summary and thoughts on the game. So we had 5 main points, talked the running game, talked the passing game, talked about some defensive discipline stuff, some of the weird penalties, the antics from Drinkwitz and the Mississippi State bench at the end, talked about that as well. So we got a good recap for you guys to kind of process that win for Mizzou and move on toward Arkansas. I'll also talk some basketball, recap the Pacific and UAPB games. Mizzou obviously winning both those really handily, just again kind of focusing on the players right now rather than the games itself, just because they're such blowouts. So yeah, we just discussed kind of the Caleb Grill playing really well, some really good stuff we're seeing from some of the freshmen, from some other players like Aiden Shaw, Mark Mitchell. Just went through kind of the roster and the performances from a few guys from those 2 games. And then we finished with quick hits. Had Ken Sports Shorts, Tigers in the Wild. A bit of a bummer, Tigers in the Wild. Had some players go down. And then we finished with headlines, including our weekly defending of Drew Lock, because he is getting absolutely screwed by the New York Giants. So we're keeping that in the public eye, doing our due diligence there as Mizzou fans and Drew Lock fans. So good show for you guys to get your week started as we roll into Arkansas week. We'll have a good preview for that as well coming up on Friday. So enjoy it. Enjoy this week's show. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, November 25th. Missouri football went into Mississippi and put on a clinic. The Tigers win over Mississippi State 39-20. We're going to do our recap for this game and moving forward a little bit differently because obviously, it's less of a reactions type thing because you're hearing this a couple of days after the game. So we went back through and obviously, after having some time to let the wind simmer and obviously let it be enjoyed too, because this was just, I think, a really nice game to have for Mizzou after a nervy last few, to be honest, with Oklahoma and South Carolina. Good to see them go out and get a win over a team they should have beaten. But we're going to do this. We've got 5 points we're going to hit on that kind of, just summarize the game and that we kind of thought of while we were just reacting to it and thinking about it afterwards. So yeah, we'll just dive right in. Mizzou 39, Mississippi State 20. And we are going to start on the ground for the Missouri Tigers. Gentlemen, Kenny, Payton, as usual. How do you think Mizzou performed on the ground? 204 yards of rushing, 56 carries, 3 touchdowns, averaged 3.6 yards a carry, which kind of sounds low after reading those overall stats, but a nice day on the ground for Mizzou. Nate Noel leading the way, 25 carries, 95 yards. What was your assessment of that performance in an area we thought coming in would be somewhere Mizzou could really gash the Bulldogs on Saturday?
Yeah, no, those numbers are deceiving because of the last drive just kind of taking off little chunks and a couple drives where like they had to just have Marcus Carroll take 4 plays to score instead of 1 because Mississippi State was just anemic against the run. It is funny because I know last week Kenny had mentioned, like, it's funny that we always like say one thing, like, and then these games go the complete opposite direction. This time that was not the case. We said we thought Mizzou would really try and just pound the rock. I mean, Knowlton, I remember you specifically mentioning as we were ending the segment, like, it could be a good Marcus Carroll game because, I mean, Mississippi State is just terrible on the interior of their D-line. That wound up coming to pass. This was the second most rushing attempts Missouri has had in a game under Drinkwitz. The first is that famous 2020 game against Kentucky, where Kentucky just could not do anything offensively. Missouri just grounded the game out. I thought it was a really good game just for everyone. The offense in general, we'll touch on it more like when we get to our next point, but it just felt a lot more 2023 like. I mean, Armand Membu and Cameron Johnson were just moving people around. They were running wide zone to their heart's content for the most part, but they did pound the inside a lot. I mean, Marcus Carroll, coming off the season he had at Georgia State last year, I'm sure at times it's been difficult for him to be like, man, maybe I should have transferred somewhere else, because he has kind of at times not been the feature back, just kind of fallen to the wayside. But this was his second game where he's had 3 touchdowns. He has 10 or 11 on the year. I forget the exact number now, but he's been a very valuable piece for them. Drinkwitz, I know after the game, mentioned like they've needed both of Noel and Carroll. It's been the by committee approach that we expected them to be in really for most of the season. It's been by the committee for the most part this season in general. Carroll, Noel, Roberts, and Lacey. Unfortunately, he got hurt in this game and didn't return. But they all had their roles and they all played them well. It was a very good game on the ground. I think the 3.6 number is super deceiving. I mean, Missouri was just running it at will. That first drive of the second half in general kind of showed you all you needed to know.
They complemented each other well, and I think this was like the first game that we saw just work out so well. Coming into the season, one of our big topics, especially in the run game, was like which running back is going to see what. Is Marcus Carroll going to be the featured back? Nate Noel has all the speed that we kept hearing about at App State. How is that going to show? This was just a good complementary running game from the two of them. Seeing Jamal Roberts mix in there as well is a good thing, especially for the future. Overall, just great performance from Marcus Carroll. Just one thing I thought was fun at the end of the game, he was like, it's good to be the power back, in those instances where they were getting into the red zone and he was getting those opportunities to score. One of the biggest things too is just those burst runs. You want to see runs that are over 10 yards that are getting a first down and more. When you get a running game like this going, you can definitely open up the passing game. Only 20 attempts from Brady Cook in this one, but it's a good thing moving forward. If this offense can do it, there's only one game left in the regular season. If these two guys are going to, play in the bowl game, play in the postseason, you're in a good spot with how this run attack has been working with the offensive line.
Yeah, I think the complementary is the perfect way to put it for a game like this, where, like you said, Kenny, I mean, it's Nate Noel having 25 carries for 95 yards, but all 3 of the touchdowns went to Marcus Carroll, like you said, in those red zone situations. The only thing I'll add specifically with the running backs is just to give some more flowers to Jamal Roberts. 5 carries, 29 yards, average 5.8 per carry. I really think Mizzou is in a good position in a good position with the running back position for the future. When you look ahead with what he can do, and obviously Lacey, you want to get him healthy. Hopefully it's not too long-term of a thing with his injury, but I think you have a lot of good pieces there moving forward, which plays into a theme. And I'm going to mention this tweet that I know the 3 of us got sent. Mizzou's had a running back with 9 rushing touchdowns plus every year under Drinkwitz. Carroll now has 9 in 2024. Cody Schrader, 14 in 2023 and 9 in 2022. Tyler Beatty, 14 in 2021, and Larry Roundtree, 14 in 2020. It's just never been a problem, the running back position for Mizzou. It doesn't sound like it's gonna stay that way. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts on Lacey and Roberts, but a wild stat that like isn't surprising, but still I think just speaks to the consistency in that position.
Yeah, I would never worry about the run game again, honestly. I mean, they've produced every single year. Their worst year was 2022, and that was still a productive run game, all things really considered. It is interesting that Drinkwitz, when he came to Mizzou, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is going to be like some QB guru that like unlocks a crazy passing game." And they have a great passing game as well. I mean, so many talented receivers, but the offense's engine has always been the run game for the most part. I mean, last year, yes, they had these NFL receivers putting up highlight reel catches, and just putting up video game numbers at times, especially early in the year. By the end of the year, that was the Cody Schrader show. I mean, the wide zone is just kind of their bread and butter. And they shouldn't shy away from that. I have full confidence that Kawan Lacey and Jamal Roberts will be productive backs for them next year. I don't think you need to go to the portal and find someone. I do trust this running game going forward.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, is with the progress you've seen from these two guys behind him, I think you're in a good spot where you don't have to worry about the portal, especially with who you might see join this running back room next year. And a guy that's from Hutchinson Community College right now is on the JUCO trail. Mizzou's actually going to go see him here on Monday. When you're listening to this, going to go visit one of his practices. And Wayman Jordan, who's had a fantastic season in his second year with Hutchinson, and going back to even in his high school days, Curtis Looper didn't follow him, but he knows his high school coach. Curtis Looper is well respected around the South, knows Florida well, knows Pensacola, where Wayman's from. And, he talked to him, got all this stuff about him. And so he's a wide zone machine, had over 1,300 yards this season in 9 games. I think nearly 7 yards per carry. So it was a pretty outstanding season. Of course, JUCO level, but definitely a guy that could probably be in that running back room next year if they get him on campus this next week. You got another guy like Jamarian Morrow, who's who visited Georgia and is going to be visiting Texas A&M in the final weekend. But all-purpose back, has different weapons he can do there. Jacob Peeler was leading his recruitment. And then Brendan Haygood, who's in the DFW area, Boise State commit, is another guy they're looking at. So they're in a good spot moving forward with the running back room. We'll definitely see how it kind of shakes out here into December on who signs, but it's a good spot moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think it's kind of remarkable how consistent that has started to become. Let's flip to the other element of the offense for our second point, gentlemen, the passing game. And, I know I had sent a text, into our Mizzou fan group chat, and we were talking, this game had a lot of sprinkles and hints of 2023 to it, particularly, of course, with one player's stat line. I'm going to go to him first, and it's Marquis Johnson. 1 catch for 45 yards. At the big one, he was targeted just twice, but again, coming up with an explosive play. And I mean, Payton, I guess I'll start with you. Just how nice is it to see both that and then just kind of the success of this receiving game? And I'll even lump Luther Burden in there as well. 7 catches for 91 yards. It finally felt like you got the game statistically out of Luther Burden, when it's kind of been a rough year for him. Defenses have been targeting him, but with both him and Marquis Johnson making big plays, felt a little 2023 Mizzou-esque from the passing game.
Yeah, it's a little bittersweet because the 2 games where it looked like Mizzou's offense were at its best, like genuinely just a straight 2023 throwback, were the last 2 in South Carolina and now Mississippi State. They found a little bit of that magic too against Oklahoma and Pine. I don't know what clicked, but the offense has really looked good since that second half of that Oklahoma game. It's a little sour because you're like, dang, man, like if they had just clicked even like half the season earlier, like you're thinking maybe you're in position for the playoffs. But it is nice to see, especially we have 1 game left of Luther Burden in all likelihood. I don't think anyone expects him to play. I think it'd be borderline negligent to let him play in the bowl game. But it is cool to see. I mean, you have not even just the Marquis Johnson play, but like Brady Cook and Luther just kind of making magic happen on the touchdown throw. You had Theo Weiss making some big plays. And look, a lot of this is, to put it bluntly, Mississippi State's secondary is just sorry. It was a total travesty to watch. I mean, 268 yards on 20 attempts is pretty gross from an SEC room. But I mean, you had Josh Manning getting a 36-yard reception. Brett Norfleet, he had the big long catch that didn't count, but he hurdled a guy like on a catch that did count. So it was a good, fun little thing to see. It was a total throwback to last season, and I think that it's not meaningless, even though a lot of these guys, in fact, pretty much every major contributor is not going to be here next year. You want Kirby Moore to like have the recipe to success for next season, no matter who's in here operating this offense. So it's good to see them kind of get back into 2023 form They still have one game left to kind of show out, put things on film. It's against a team that I think people have take a little more seriously as a rival in Arkansas. And, getting not to 9-3 is just, it's not nothing to these kids, I don't think. I think they showed they were motivated yesterday. They could have folded after South Carolina, but the offense came out and looked great again.
I got two just quick takeaways from that passing game and the efficiency. You talk about the 15 for 25 is great. What you want to see from Brady Cook. I know a lot of people are questioning why wasn't he stepping up in the pocket, rolling out a couple times, dealing with the ankle injury and then upper body, wrist, or whatever Mizzou wants to designate as. Definitely what looked like a wrist injury in an Alabama game. It's good. It's good to see. Good to see from him. He's been playing hurt most of the season. And explosive plays. That's what Mizzou has beaten teams. That's how Mizzou beat teams in 2023. That's how Mizzou beat teams years before that. They've always preached explosive plays on offense and chaos plays on defense. And it was just that's exactly what they needed in this game. Is that exactly what you saw? And it's just kind of getting back to the basics. And it's late into the season, one regular season game left, but it is a good spot to be in when you're trying to chase that 9th win.
Well, Kenny, I'll double down on Brady for a second with you because, you mentioned his stat line. I don't think we're expecting a player, at least I'm not expecting a player with the injuries we know he has to do the spectacular every game. But you mentioned the 15 for 20. I mean, how did you feel about his decision making just as a whole? I think, especially against a secondary like that, to me, it's good. You're not turning the ball over. It never looked, really even shaky. He just did what he had to do. And like you said, with the way this offense goes, that turns into explosive plays. Yeah,
it definitely got stronger with time and beating up on a weaker secondary, one that's filled less with experienced starters, experience with multiple years at the college level. It's exactly what you wanted to see. A guy that's battled, a hand injury, wrist injury, whatever it may be, and just kind of getting into those rhythms of hitting guys further downfield. I think one of the biggest issues that you saw early on in the season that people were pointing to is accuracy. How is he going to take that step forward as the season progressed? Of course, battle those injuries, but this is exactly what you wanted to do against a team that's a little bit weaker in that regard in the secondary, and hit those big shots because you just weren't really hitting them early on in the season.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And then if there's one thing, there's 3 things guaranteed in life. They say it's death, taxes, and Brett Norfleet jumping over or attempting to jump over a person because that man loves a hurdle. I think he tried it again later too and got it. I thought it was going to be the Madden thing when you try to hurdle someone and you shouldn't. They flip over and do that animation. Yeah, he loves a hurdle. It was nice to see him back, and obviously they had that big play negated, which was unfortunate. But yeah, I think Brady's decision making was good. I think it's you have to take it a little bit with a grain of salt from a opponent's standpoint, but it's always good to build some momentum going forward. 3rd point, we're flipping to the other side of the ball. The defense, the discipline of the defense. Obviously, this was a Mississippi State team. We were, kind of expecting to give up, or we were expecting Mizzou to surrender some points. They gave up 20. They were only called for 2 penalties on defense, but they were both. I know Payton. You had some thoughts on that, and I would like you to present them to the people as well as just give your thoughts on how this defense performed against it's not a good Mississippi State team, but an offense that, like we said pregame, can score points.
Yeah, ultimately it didn't matter, the defensive discipline, too much. It was just a pretty overmatched Mississippi State team in general. Mizzou just grinded the game away. I mean, they had 21 minutes of possession to 2 at one point in the second half. But just really quickly on the penalties, I mean, it's just total crap to see a 7th year or 6th year, whatever he is, senior in Chuck Hicks, get a personal foul penalty. No better. I'm not even going to fault coaching for that. That's just garbage from a supposed leader on the team, someone that should absolutely be more disciplined than that. Chuck Hicks is in his 6th or 7th year of college, and he's 25 years old. Keep your emotions in check, man. That's complete garbage. You haven't played well enough to warrant it either. As far as the rest of the defense goes, I mean, like we said, this is a Mississippi State team that can score. They were going to get theirs a little bit. I actually am fine with how the defense played. Mizzou came out of the gates and looked terrible. Quite frankly, Mississippi State got the ball, drove down pretty quickly and scored. Then the offense had 2 real bad drives, but it was the defense really. It was Dalen Carnell after a pretty bad, like not a bad punt, but like a punt from your own end zone. Mississippi State gets the ball at like the 30 something. Dalen Carnell's scoop and score kind of set the tone for the whole game, I think. So the defense gets points in my book for that. The tackling still wasn't perfect, but I thought it improved. I didn't notice as many guys like getting gashed in the tackle like they did in the South Carolina game, at least. Too early on, they were giving way too much cushion to these Mississippi State receivers, and it was the only way they were moving the ball. I mean, Mississippi State was just running RPOs and hitting slant routes to Kevin Coleman and their other receivers. It was just too soft early on. They tightened that up in the second half, and they were better for it. They got gashed on the ground by Booth. I think he averaged like 10 yards a carry or something. He did gash them, but again, they did enough to win the game. They didn't give up enough back-breaking plays. And a lot of that is on Van Buren. He's young, he's a playmaker, but he is inaccurate at this stage of his career. That 4th and 3, he kind of let them off the hook, like really just in the game in general. It's an 11-point game. You make that throw, you have a chance to make it at the very worst an 8-point game, at the very best a 3-point game. And he just missed the throw. But overall, I was fine with how the defense played. It is what it is as a unit this year. They need to hit the portal hard for defensive backs because Toriano Pride and Nick DeLoach are just not – that ain't going to cut it. There's just no world that exists where Mizzou can be successful if those are your corners next – two guys that you're relying on for heavy corner snaps next year. So I'd expect them to just live – in the portal and camp out for like a bunch of safeties and a bunch of corners because I think they have to at this point.
Well, Kenny, I'll ask you. I mean, you got the PFF numbers up. I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts on the secondary? Not to dunk on them too hard, but I think it's sort of deserved. I mean, what do the analytics say? And yeah, just your thoughts as well on specifically the secondary play.
Yeah, it's just like the one that just continues to stick out is Marvin Burks. It's a lot of orange, a lot of red. Just the last couple of games from him, and just another one that you're going to see it here. I think the grades don't really tell the full story of how this defense performed. A lot of mid numbers, so some good ones are in the greens. No one reached an 80 grade, but one thing that did kind of stick out to me, and I think it's kind of maybe a good thing, kind of moving forward with that defensive tackle position, is that Sterling Webb started in this game. I know that doesn't always tell you who the best defensive tackle is. It's just who they want on the field right away, just in a certain look. But he started there with Christian Williams. He did have the same amount of snaps as Chris McClellan. So good spot for the defensive tackle position. Didn't get the best grade though. 60.3. It's just mid. I think that's just what you would call it. It's in the yellow range. But yeah, the thing I just wanted to point to at that cornerback position, I saw some people asking, why don't you give Shamar McNeil, Marcus Clark some snaps? I think there's a reason why you're not seeing that. There's a reason Toriano Pride got moved off of his starting spot for Nicholas DeLoach. It's just the cornerback room's not in the spot that it was last year. They didn't really reinforce it after losing 2 guys to the NFL. They only have 1 guy coming in currently in this class, and Mark Manfred, who is going to be an early enrollee, but you still can't rely on a freshman corner to come out and be what Ennis Rakestraw was a couple years ago. So maybe Mark Manfred does take that step forward, but there's a reason guys like Shamar McNeil haven't stepped up yet, because they just haven't fit into the role for this team.
So Bass is a safety, yeah. Charles Bass
is a safety, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I was worried about Toriano Pride when I started to look at some things after he came in. I was optimistic because I was like, all right, he's at Clemson. He played across from Nate Wiggins. Maybe things can get figured out. But yeah, he just has not been good.
That Marvin Burks, he's just terrible, man. It's really that's disappointing. Like early in the year, he looked good. He made plays against like last year as a freshman, I remember, and he's been a mess. I mean, look at those last few weeks. It's just been total debacle for him.
There's one green. If you're watching on the YouTube, he had a 70.8 tackle grade against Alabama, and he's been below 70 in every category, whether it's run defense, pass defense, coverage since.
Very, very disappointing year from him. That is a big setback for them, because I think they really were relying on him. And just not to belabor it, Knowlton, but when we started to hear more about like Nick DeLoach starting to like split reps with Toriano Pride, I know some people could have read that as, oh wow, the young guy's stepping up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you go from playing 0 defensive snaps last year to a starter and have it be a good thing. That just kind of indicated to me that Toriano Pride was not where he should have been, and that's kind of proven to be the point. I mean, neither of them have been very good. Drayden Norwood has been okay. He's been CB1 out of necessity because he's at least playable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the secondary, Mizzou has got to do more there. It was a sham that they didn't do more last year in the portal at that position, and I think they're going to have to do it this year.
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially at corner too. Like a guy taking 0 reps doesn't just slot in the starting spot. That's a really hard skill position that takes time, to master at the college level. So yeah, no, we're dunking on the corners too hard at this point, or running around in circles. But yeah, that's the main thing. I think it emphasizes a big thing they need to address in the off season. Let's go to point number 4. And man, oh man, speaking of beating a dead horse, here we go. Special teams. We're back yet again. Kenny, this is your unit, so I'll go to you first. Correct me if I'm missing anything. We had the Blake Craig, he went 1 for 2, missed the 44-yarder, and then had the kickoff out of bounds. And then Daniel Blood had the punt return that he got drilled and they lost 10 yards. Those were the 2 I wrote down. I don't remember if there were any more obvious errors, but I remember at one point I was being a little over dramatic, but I think I texted you too. I was like, they might lose this game just because of special teams. It feels like the 2011 Chargers. It's bad. It's so bad.
There was a 32-yard punt from Luke Bauer that kind of stood out as well. And he's the one that everyone kind of has been giving props to the last 2 seasons. It's kind of getting out of hand. I just feel like not enough people are talking about it either. Just kind of looking at this season. Maybe I see this even from analysts and people who follow this team. There's just not enough conversation about where this special teams unit has been over the last couple of years. And it's not just Eric Link. He is a special teams coordinator. There are other coaches that are involved in special teams. Curtis Looper helps with returns. Al Pogue helps with returners, just depending on if it's punts or kicks. There's different guys. It just feels like nothing has just gone right with this unit over the last 3 years, and it's going to fall on him. It's going to fall on Eric Link. But I'm hopefully talking to the long snapper Mizzou landed as a preferred walk-on in the class of 2025. And I just want to kind of hear from him, what they're kind of seeing from Eric Link, because he continues to land high-rated kickers and long snappers. The punting position probably hasn't been where it should be. That they've had guys in the past that have come in that are grad transfers, but it just feels like it's never gotten right. And he's a very close friend of Drinkwitz. He's been under Drinkwitz's staff at different schools. Most recently when they were both at App State, but I just don't know. I really don't know. The guy's lost multiple position titles within his name. Now he's just a special teams coordinator, no longer tight ends coach. I think he was even considered the assistant head coach, right under Drinkwitz 2 seasons ago. And it's just the special teams unit continues to falter.
Yeah, we've talked about it to death at this point, so I don't really need to pile on much more. It's just a bad unit. I mean, it's been 5 years. We haven't had one good returner under Eric Link, either on kickoffs or punts. They're always bad. And it's really funny because Luther Burton should be elite at punt returns, and it looks like he has never been coached at the position before. He still catches punts off a bounce. He takes bad fair catches. He muffs punts, and that is Eric Link's fault. It is his unit. He doesn't even have tight ends to worry about anymore. They made him full-time special teams coordinator, and it's still garbage. It is still inexcusably bad at every single phase. I agree with you 100%, Kenny. Does not get talked about enough. It is consistently the worst group on the team. They special teams makes up like 20% of snaps in a game, maybe. And I swear to God, you feel it. You feel like it's more with Mizzou because it's always just like a weight on their shoulders. It is never, ever making good plays for them. They have made one like really good play in the last 2 years, and it was Luke Bowers' fake punt. Like, God bless that play. It probably won them the Kentucky game and allowed them to have the season they've had. It should not have bought Eric Link 2 years of job security. The unit is inexcusably bad, and that should fall squarely on Eric Link's shoulders. I don't care how well he recruits because of connections to these special teams agencies he probably has to get these recruits. They're horrible. They're horribly coached. Blake Craig needs to have a competition next year to win that job. He should not be handed it. He is 1 for 8 on 40 to 49-yard field goals. That is inexcusable.
I think we can pat ourselves in the back as the most outspoken podcast or Mizzou media member or whatever you want to call us as against the special teams. We have been on this wave for years, and loyal listeners are well aware of that. But yeah, I won't dunk on it any further. It's bad. It's going to lose them a game like at one point.
They are so lucky it has not yet because everything else is. Yeah, they are so lucky because there are so many games. Well, 2022 Kentucky special teams lost them that game 100%. But I mean, the Oklahoma game, they are so lucky it did not cost them. I mean, that was the worst special teams performance I have ever seen, and they got away with it.
Even Auburn. Auburn scored a touchdown on a punt.
Terrible. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just every week. They have not been a net positive for them once this season.
Yeah, it's bad. All right, fifth point. This is our last one. Kenny, I'll ask you about the kind of first part of this, and then Peyton, I want to ask you about some Mississippi State stuff. This one as well isn't, a super in the end, it didn't ultimately matter, but it is interesting, I think, to talk about from a coach's standpoint, because before or on the drive of Mississippi State's only touchdown, when it looked like on a 3rd and 2 that Mizzou had gotten a stop and seemed to, like, at least us watching on the TV, that Drinkwitz should have maybe thrown the challenge flag and had some had them take a second look at it. What was your thoughts on that? And just, you analyze it again in the game. It doesn't matter in a vacuum. It doesn't really matter, but it is interesting. You want your coach to be, aware of those things and making good decisions. What was just your take on that situation? And maybe you can refresh people's minds of the play also that better than I can.
Yeah, I think just in the moment, you're a little bit like, frustrated, head scratching, like a little bit more like confused on the refs missing the spot, and just kind of feel like people might've been yelling at the TV, like, hey, that's not a first down. He was short. End of the day, of course, doesn't really matter after that. But I think in the moment, you maybe want to see your coach a little bit fired up on the sideline arguing it, but it's fine in the end. It's just one of those things where I think it kind of just falls into like the game management stuff that we've seen from Drinkwitz, and just some of those things where you're like, maybe you want to see a little bit more fired. He's done it in that Alabama game. Even a play where he was in the wrong, but he's going to back his guys. It's still just something that's going to happen. I'm not too blown away by it. I think I was a little bit more at the time, but it's just one of those things that maybe you want to see a flag thrown, but also maybe you don't want to waste it early on if you're just not convinced.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think you just need to, you keep that in mind. You use it as a learning moment that you didn't have to learn the hard way, as you go forward when it comes to challenging and looking at some stuff. The other thing, Peyton and Kenny, you can obviously weigh in on this as well. We had some fourth quarter semantics at the end of this game, and I know Peyton,
I don't think semantics is the right word, but it was more like fireworks.
Extracurriculars. That's what I meant.
That's a good one.
Extracurriculars. And Peyton, I know you were pretty fired up rewatching the fourth quarter, and we got shout out our friend Max Baker. Tweet went viral. Hopefully, he got some. He's not verified. He could have got some good money from Elon from this. We had Drinkwitz yelling at Mississippi State people. Peyton, walk us through the end of this game, Peyton, and what was going on, and Drinkwitz being Drinkwitz, and again, there was no result to be determined here. The game was over, but still kind of just a funny ending to a otherwise, meaningless outcome.
Yeah, I mean, just the fourth quarter in general. I mean, it was Mississippi State it's been a frustrating year for them. They're 2-9. They're not going to win an SEC game. They're not going to beat Ole Miss next week. I mean, once they knew the game was over, they started getting kind of chippy. I mean, Brady Cook goes out of bounds on a play, and a couple of guys are like jawing at him. One pushed him and somehow didn't get a flag. I thought that was kind of garbage. I don't really want to blame Jeff Lebby. He kind of inherited this program, and just seems like he's got to kind of get some of the bad actors out of there. But it was getting a little annoying because at the end of the game, Mizzou is literally doing the move that like Mississippi State should appreciate. They have the ball at the 1, 1st and goal, and decide to just kneel it out. And Mississippi State is still kind of getting like chippy with it. Like they're getting in Caden Green's face. At first, Drink yelled like, "Hey, Caden, shut the F up and let's just go home." Then Mississippi State keeps going and Drink goes, "Hey, Mississippi State, shut the F up or I'm going to score." I think he should have scored personally. I think Mississippi State earned it. They kind of had some garbage extracurriculars there at the end. Like you said, I would have liked to have seen Mizzou punched it in just to kind of like send a message to Mississippi State like, "Hey, we're way above you. Like this is garbage. We're not going to put up with." But fair play to Drinkwitz. I do think he kind of like I think everyone kind of knows he didn't take the Heupel stuff a couple of years ago well. I think he said the right things for a change, but I think deep down everyone knew, and he showed it last year with the timeout before the field goal and everything. He remembers, and I think he remembered here like how that made him feel, that Tennessee touchdown, and he decided not to return the favor. So fair play to Drink. He took the high road here, but he did let them know like, "Hey, we know we can score on you, but we're not gonna." So he gave him a warning, and I think Drink handled it the right way. I know people on Twitter didn't like it, but you know what? This is the type of stuff that I love from Drinkwitz when they're winning.
Some good replies in this tweet. Yeah, I would agree. Kenny, you got any thoughts on the Drink banter?
It just takes me back to the thing where if you're a fan of Missouri football, then you probably like him in these instances. You're fine with it. If you're not a fan of Missouri football, I completely understand why people don't like him and don't like when he does this stuff. Frankly, as an unbiased observer these days, I think it's hilarious. I think if any coach kind of did this, just the way he's so serious about it too. If you haven't seen the video, go watch it. Max
I'm gonna
Baker
score.
posted it. He looks serious. Like he
does.
not just joking about it. Like he'll do it. Like he'll effing do it. Is what I can kind of picture in his head in his Southern accent. I think it's fun. It's just college football.
Yeah, he leans into it. I agree. I get very pro Drink when he does this type of stuff and wins, and get very anti Drink when he does this type of stuff and loses. I feel like that's the case of most fans. So there you go. There's a fun way to end that. But yeah, Missouri cruising 39-20 over Mississippi State, adding another win to the tally. 8-3 are the Tigers now, and one more regular season game, if you can believe that. Yeah. Arkansas no longer on Black Friday, which kind of stinks. So Saturday, 2:30, that one will happen. We'll have a preview for it on Friday for you guys, of course. So on Black Friday, you can listen to the show about the game that's no longer on Black Friday. But yeah, nice win for Mizzou. Just nice to see some magic from 2023 come back, and just a good all around game, bludgeoning a team that they should bludgeon. So no weirdness about that. Let's segue, gentlemen, before we go over to quick hits. We got 2 basketball games to recap, and again with these non-con games, I don't think there's any uber particular order or of things to go through. Missouri played Pacific and UAPB. We're actually recording this right after the UAPB game. They beat Pacific 91-56, and then beat UAPB Arkansas-Pine Bluff 112-63 on Sunday. I think let's just do a general takeaways from both games. Payton and Kenny, and y'all can, or Payton, you go first, and just your thoughts on 2 more wins for Mizzou, 2 opponents they should beat. And Payton, they proved you wrong. You had said right before we ended that Pacific was going to give this team some fits, and Missouri ended up rolling.
Yeah, I thought Pacific was going to hang with Missouri at least for a little bit. I mean, Pacific was a team that, with 11 minutes left in their game against Arkansas Pacific was within 5. I mean, they were competitive with Arkansas for a lot of that game, and I thought Mizzou was going to struggle a little bit early on, but fair play. I mean, they get behind 7-2 early. Drinkwitz does a very effective sub. He puts Grill in, he puts Warwick in, and they provide an immediate spark. I mean, Caleb Grill is just playing like a man possessed in both of these games. I mean, he is just absolutely lethal. They need this version of Caleb Grill, or at least close to it, if they're going to make noise this year. I mean, against Pacific, 7 for 9 from deep. I mean, just absolutely lighting them up. This was a game that, like I said, I thought they'd play a little bit closer with Pacific than a lot of people would have wanted. That was not the case. They were up big at halftime, and they did not let them even think about getting back into it. UAPB, same deal. They went out, had a bit of a sluggish start, but then it just jet away. I mean, there was like a 23-1 run at some point. They led by 50 at one point in this game. Main takeaways, I think that Caleb Grill has just been excellent. I think this is the version they need going forward. Mizzou didn't shoot great from deep against UAPB. They didn't really need to. Grill was 4 for 8. The rest of the team was 5 for, doing the math there, 5 for 24. Jacob Cruz was 0 for 5 in that instance as well. I think that's worth pointing out. But I don't know, man. I think this team has something. It's the first time in school history that the basketball team has won 3 games by 35 plus in a row. I don't think you do that on accident, no matter who you're playing. I think there's something to that. Mark Mitchell was excellent against Arkansas-Pine Bluff. Pretty much everyone played well outside of Jacob Cruz against UAPB. I don't really have a whole ton to add. It was 2 teams you'd want to see them buried, and they buried them. I think that this team has something to it. I don't think I still wouldn't pick them to make the tournament right now, but I think this team is I think they're going to be competitive night in and night out. There's definitely something to them. Very encouraged by what you're seeing from young guys. Ant Robinson in particular is just really wowing me at this point. He had a double-double against UAPB, 11 points, 11 rebounds. Just very encouraging stuff all around.
I'll give my flowers too. Call this segment Ken's Flowers. Like Ken's.
Why does it have to be Ken's everything? Why can't we have a Jack's sports shorts or a Payton's?
My name's in the middle.
Headlines.
Almost like I'm in first.
My name's better.
On the podium.
All right,
let's give flowers to Josh Gray. I thought he played well in those 18 minutes against Pacific. He made his first career 3 after probably what kind of looked like another sluggish start for him. I think it's easy for a lot of us to look at some guys in their first year within a program, even if they have experience at other schools, and kind of nitpick them a little bit. It's just an easy thing that anyone will do early on. But it's good to see like some of these players just kind of have like their own little takeovers in different games. You've seen it with Caleb Grill has done it multiple times. And Mark Mitchell's had his runs. Anthony Robinson, Tamar Bates, of course. Marquis work a couple games ago. It's just what you kind of want to see early on. With the rotations being so heavy and a lot of guys playing in these games, you want to see if one of these guys can take over. I mean, there's no Kobe Brown. Like it's just like you don't have the one guy. Maybe Mark Mitchell does step into that role this season, but is very, very good. Any concerns you've had in those instances where, can you rely on Josh Gray? I think he kind of showed against Pacific. Didn't play too much in this game. Only 8 minutes against. Sorry.
He didn't need to. Is all.
Yeah,
I'd say.
That's what I'm saying. Like even in the Arkansas-Pine Bluff game, so. It's just like those things where, when he does play and then against Pacific, you saw a good run from him. So I think that's definitely good to see another guy. I'll give some flowers to his T.O. Barrett. Dennis did mention that he is healthy. Kind of looked like they were going to redshirt him there. He wasn't playing, but he was in a position where he could get on the floor. He looks athletic. He looks good for a freshman. He ended up getting 7 minutes in his first game against Pacific, scoring 2 points. And then tonight, when we're recording this on Sunday, played another 4 minutes, scoring 5 points. So that's very good to see from one of your guards.
Yeah, you guys hit on most of what I had written down. And again, I think these recaps, by the way, will kind of get more similar to football when they actually start playing real teams. But I think this is just the way to do it, be a little bit more broad with it for now. But yeah, I thought Tio Barrett was excellent. I love what I'm seeing from Trent Pierce, to harp on what both of you guys said just about the youngsters. And Boateng's still getting his sea legs, but he almost made the craziest play in both games. He had a nuts dunk against Pacific and almost had another one against UAPB. So there's some explosiveness there that I like. Caleb Grill, I have a stat after the Pacific game. He was averaging through the last 3 games. So this was before UAPB, but 24.5 points, 74% from 3 in the last 3 games. He's just automatic. And Payton, I think you're exactly right to bring it holistically. This team, I think you had texted it to us, already feels like it has more continuity about it and more of an identity about it than they did last year. And I think you're right. Despite the opponent, there is something to that. And I think that's encouraging. I'm loving a lot more what I'm seeing from Mark Mitchell. I think he's gotten a lot more comfortable in his role. He is and you made a good point about this too, Payton. Dennis, I mean, you saw it with Kobe Brown, loves to have guys who play a lot bigger than they are. And I think that's exactly what Mark Mitchell does. I think we saw it from Marcus Allen, another young guy. He seems to do that. And it was funny too. I wanted to mention, as I was typing, Mark Mitchell is playing well. He got teed up in the UAPB game, like as I was typing that. I was like, all right, Mark.
Because he knocked the ball out of the dude's hands on accident.
It's making me look bad. But yeah, I mean, they had a 23-2 run. UAPB went 12 minutes without hitting a field goal at one point. There's better stuff on the defensive end. Aiden Shaw, after weirdly not playing against Pacific, did well against UAPB, and I think that was good. To me, the next step when they play these good teams is Dennis has to start making some cuts. I don't need to see Jacob Cruz as much, and I don't need to see some of these other guys as much.
I have a take that I think is hot for the Mizzou fan base.
Let's hear it.
I think Dennis's subs this year and the way he's rotating guys in, I think it's made a lot of sense, actually. I actually really do think that the subbing and the way and the times he's playing guys makes sense. The reason Aiden Shaw didn't play against Pacific, I think he said was like just the way Pacific was kind of packing the like paint. It just wouldn't have made sense to use Aiden Shaw in that game. If those are the certain if Dennis is making like informed lineup decisions like that every night, and like when you go into SEC play, I'm totally fine if some nights Aiden Shaw goes out and plays 15 and then the next night he doesn't play. I think that makes a lot of sense. Use guys like you have this deep bench, use them in matchups that make sense. You don't have to play. I don't think you have to get set in just a 7 or 8 man rotation. If the matchup favors Marquez Warwick playing like 15 minutes or 20 minutes one night and 3 the next, fine by me. I do agree. Jacob Cruz, sometimes there's just guys you got to cut your losses on. Jacob Cruz does not look like a guy that's translating. And I think you need to make that decision sooner rather than later, that you just can't have him in the rotation, especially when other guys look ahead of the curve, like more than we thought they would be. Like Marcus Allen, I think is way in front of where we thought he'd be. I've been way more impressed by Aiden Shaw than I thought I'd be. I think Jacob Cruz is an odd man out in most instances. But I don't know, man. The subs are making sense to me. And the way he's using guys is making a lot more sense to me. Like I said, or like you mentioned, they look a lot more cohesive than they did last year, especially the young guys. Ant and Trent look like they have a lot of chemistry. So I think the subs make sense personally. I know that's not going to make a lot of Mizzou fans happy. I like the way Dennis is subbing right now. I think it's working.
Dennis's wizard ways, Gandalf ways are getting to Payton. Kenny?
I think
You would
Jacob
take on
Cruz is
that?
going to make 6 threes against Lindenwood.
I think you're an insane person.
I really think this is going to be one of those games where he goes off and just proves
It was
everyone
like
wrong.
what was the Noah Carter game in 2023? Wasn't that against Pine Bluff? Didn't he do that against somebody? He had like 4 or 5 threes, and we were like, "Oh my god, this is the best stretch center I've ever seen." And then was
I
great.
honestly don't remember
He had a game like
any
that.
game
when
where
he,
Noah Carter would have made 3 or 4 3-pointers. Boy,
he had a
could
game
not
like that
shoot.
against one of those teams, and it was we were like, "Whoa, Noah Carter." Kenny, do you have a lineup take?
No, I like it.
Right.
I think it's a very deep team right now. You'll definitely see that kind of trimmed down. But I think there's a lot of credit to Dennis Gates and definitely the assistants too. It seems like a lot of people rave about Kyle Smith-Peters, Dickie Nutt, pretty deep coaching staff, just with a lot of history in college basketball. So you have to be pretty happy with what you're seeing if you're a Mizzou fan.
I don't need to see the Anor Boateng starting minutes anymore. We can knock that.
Yeah,
off.
Anor seems like it just doesn't seem ready, which is fine. He's a true freshman. He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be much of a contributor going into bigger games.
That's still my weird lineup thing but I can maybe get on board. We're gonna see. I think yes, Payton, it's good. I want to see it, in SEC play where he's not playing guys. Just it feels like it's being force fed and there's weird decisions being made. I need to see it once conference play starts, but then I can buy in. But I think you're both spot on. I think this team's moving in a good direction, and we're gonna hopefully see it continue that way. Mizzou plays Lindenwood, the Lions, an in-state battle. Missouri's trying to win would they win the Tennessee State Championship in football? They should go after the Missouri State Championship in basketball every year. I think we've talked about this in the show. It should be Lindenwood, Mo State, SLU, Kansas City, and SEMO. They should play all of them.
Would Konzo Martin want to play at Mizzou Arena? I was thinking about that earlier.
Home and home.
I thought I wouldn't.
If they booed Konzo Martin, I would be embarrassed.
I'd be upset.
I'd be embarrassed for the Mizzou fan base. Konzo's a legend. Lindenwood Wednesday. Guess what? You got to stream it. SEC Network Plus for that one. 5:30 at night though, in the middle of the week for Mizzou. Some good games upcoming too. We got Cal and Illinois on the horizon. That leads to my final thing before we go to quick hits. I'm going to caveat all of what we just said, and actually, it's not as bad of a stat when I look at the teams around them. Kenny Payton, where do you think Mizzou's current KenPom ranking is for their non-conference strength of schedule? What do you think they're ranked?
304.
Okay, there are 364 Division I teams.
Yeah, and I think they're in the 300s.
279.
They have the 342nd most difficult non-conference schedule. However, that is ahead of the likes of Creighton, Illinois, UConn, Iowa State, Xavier, and Utah. There is a lot of Power 5 teams that are actually below them. So not as mean as I thought it was as a stat.
And they're top 50 in KenPom. They're number 49.
They are 49. They have the number 34 offense, number 84 defense. So some good things to hang your hat on there. I'm excited for the
53 in Torvik.
I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for some of these games upcoming. I'm to see, another game against a Power 5 team after Memphis. And yeah, good times hopefully continue to come from Mizzou men's basketball. For the rest of this show, we'll move on to quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. Ken, you now have Ken's Flowers, but you have also Ken's Sports Shorts, of course.
Ken's Roses.
Ken's Roses, my bad. Will you accept this rose? What's your Ken Sports Shorts this year, Kenny?
All right, the Arkansas game coming up. Let's take a look back at some of these matchups. Tigers have played Arkansas 15 times in football. It dates back to 1906. I'll give you the all-time record right now just because that's not what I'm going to be asking you. They are 11-4 all-time. Tigers are against
that was
the
going to be my
Razorbacks.
guess with 11 wins.
Since the 2014 season, Arkansas has only defeated Missouri twice. Both of those games were Arkansas has only defeated Missouri twice.
Don't say the answer, and you're presenting
in Fayetteville. But these two teams have met twice in bowl games. I think one of them you guys are going to know pretty easily, but there is another one. Both have happened since we were born, 2008 and 2003. Do you guys know what bowl game they played in 2008 and who won?
Cotton Bowl, Missouri.
Correct.
That was going to be
38-7. This is a fun one, though. The 2003 season, this game was on New Year's Eve in 2003. What bowl game did the Tigers play the Razorbacks in?
Can
I want to say, yeah, you can give it a whirl because I think I might know.
Does the bowl still exist?
Yes.
I was going to guess
probably not under the same name though, Knowlton.
I was going to guess the Sun Bowl, but I don't think that's right.
It's not. It's definitely not the Sun Bowl.
It is not the Sun Bowl.
So has the name changed?
No. I believe it's still the same.
I still think I know the answer, but
all right, let Payton cook.
Payton?
Did Dave Matter tell us about this bowl?
He did.
Yep, it's the 2003 Independence Bowl.
That is correct. It's Shreveport, Louisiana. Missouri Tigers lost 27-14.
I would not have been able to tell you they
Gross.
lost that game. I honestly did not know the result, but
Gross. Well done, Payton. Well done. Payton
The
once again
two
carries. Go
Two
ahead,
programs met in 1963. Missouri defeated Arkansas 7-6. In 1944, the two teams played in St. Louis, and
Bring that back.
Arkansas defeated
Don't
Missouri
play
7-6. So back-to-back 7-6 games. And then back in 1906, the first meeting between these two programs, Missouri defeated Arkansas 11-0.
How do we feel about a Mizzou game in Kansas City after they let the Jayhawks play in the Chiefs Stadium?
I'm not that moved by playing games elsewhere at this point in time, really. Like, just play them on campus.
It's fair. I can respect it. All right. Tigers in the Wild. Good quiz, Kenny. Back to you with your Tiger in the Wild.
I had a quick one here. Looking at the UFL, San Antonio Brahmas are signing former Patriot safety and former Missouri Tiger Joshua Bledsoe, per source. Shout out UFL analyst Michael Del Negro, who got the scoop at UFL analyst on X. And also, I'll throw out there that this team also signed Greg Ward on the same day.
Oh my God.
Former U of H quarterback.
The youngsters will always remember Charleston and Carley's as their safety duo. I remember Gillespie and Bledsoe.
Throw DeMarcus Acey in there as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say can't.
He's a corner.
DeMarcus Acey.
Oh, I thought he was a safety.
Nope, corner. Him and Sparks, I believe, was our freshman year duo. Perkins, maybe? I don't know.
My go-to 2019 Mizzou guys always was it Jonathan Johnson, the receiver? I always think of him.
Tristan Colon Castillo.
Yeah, he was great.
Yasir Durant, anyone? Anyways, I'm glad you got that happy one in, Kenny, because it gets depressing after this, because my Tiger in the Wild is going to be a Caleb Evans. After being like a 17-game starter for them, he was a third-round pick for them in the 2022 draft. Vikings waived him just yesterday, actually, at the time of recording. He waived him on Saturday. So Caleb Evans will be looking for a new team, unfortunately.
Yeah, tough. I thought he'd gotten some pretty consistent reps, so that is unfortunate. I have another sad one. I hate to piggyback because
rough day for 2020 Mizzou or 2021 Mizzou corners.
Yes, very rough. Very rough week. This one isn't a getting cut, but it's an injury because Ennis Rakestraw was put on IR for the Lions. So he's my Tiger in the Wild this week. Yeah. Unfortunate news. Hasn't really got a shot much of this year.
No, he's not a starter right now.
Yeah, so hopefully he can, get healthy. Maybe he'd been dealing with something lingering and they just finally decided to shut him down. But Lions are having a very good season, so maybe he can get himself a Super Bowl ring, even if he doesn't play that much this year.
I appreciate that robot in Adam Schefter's reply saying Rakestraw down, Mosley up, Lions secondary shaking up.
How do you know it's a robot? It seems like a very human response. Come on, that's totally a real life guy.
Moving on.
All right, headlines. Kenny?
Death taxes Kenny Van Doren choosing the AP Top 25 college football poll, and it doesn't matter anymore as his headline. The Missouri Tigers, according to the Week 14 AP poll, are back. Back to being ranked. If you are a
Yay! Support AP. Kenny, donate right now.
If you are a Missouri fan, your Tigers are number 24 in the AP poll. The college football playoff poll will come out Tuesday night.
Back in front of Army, take that 2021 Armed Forces Bowl.
I like that they're
SEC, am I
sandwiched.
right?
I like that they're sandwiched in between two teams that drop 7 spots. It just that image just makes me laugh. Just
Potential Las Vegas Bowl opponent right above them in Colorado. Can I see where South Carolina is? I'm just curious.
South Carolina
16. Behind Ole Miss and Alabama still.
No Texas A&M is my only takeaway.
They're at 20. But yeah.
Never mind.
Very crazy week of football.
I'm excited to get into the bowl projections and kind of see.
I'm already way in the weeds on those.
Well, you have been, but
boy,
oh
boy.
For the sake of the show, it was a crazy week in college football. Quite the shakeup.
Whole picture is shaken. I mean, the SEC had just a terrible week.
We're gonna get into it. I've got a headline related. But what's yours? What's yours, Payton?
Mine is going to be Baker Mayfield sparks Bucks with double Tommy tribute versus the Giants, because Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers absolutely killed the Giants today. Baker, after a scramble touchdown that made it like 23-0, I think, did the Tommy DeVito celebration, just totally mocking him. And you know what? Good on Baker, because it's a joke that Tommy DeVito is even starting instead of Drew Lock. I mean, this is just blatant open tanking. I don't know. Like, I don't care that much, really. It's a team I don't root for. But you sign Drew Lock. He's the backup all season. You tell him he's QB2 all season, and then he gets passed up by Tommy DeVito randomly on the depth chart. I don't even know if he wound up playing in this game. It was really ugly for most of it. I think it got to 30-0 at one point. It did.
Through one pass.
Drew Lock did come in 1 for 1, 3 yards. So there you go. You get a bonus Tiger of the week. He should probably start next week.
Yeah, no, this is good. Like, obviously, none of us on this podcast care about the Giants, but we have an obligation as a Mizzou podcast to defend Drew Lock, who is getting absolutely scred by a team who's tanking openly. It's ridiculous.
100%.
Did you guys hear what Malik Neighbors said after the game?
Nope.
He was mad. He called them soft as fuck. He was mad at his team. He wouldn't be calling them that if Drew Lock was throwing him the football, which is what should be happening. Put Drew Lock in. Justice for Drew.
Take that, Tom Herman.
Yeah, well done, Payton. We got to keep on this narrative. We got to keep the line. We can't let the Giants off the hook. My headline of the week, we're going back to college. Payton hinted at it. The headline reads as follows: Number 10 Georgia Bulldogs secure a spot in the SEC championship game. Not something I think anyone was expecting heading into last week, and then the SEC decided to cannibalize itself. Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M all had 2 losses, all had college football playoff hopes. All lost again, and it put Georgia in the SEC championship against. We already know it's going to either be Texas or Texas A&M after that game happens next week, and we've gone from this world of what the hell is the playoff going to do with the SEC to, oh wow, the SEC is going to have like 2 teams, and that's just going to be that crazy.
They'll have 3. I think you'll get Georgia in there.
Tennessee, Texas
probably is in no matter what. Tennessee is probably in no matter what, barring a loss to Vanderbilt, which could happen now. But yeah, I mean, A&M probably wasn't going to make it unless they got an SEC title win to begin with. I mean, it was a tough road for them in general. Ole Miss, though, I mean, that's an all-time bottle job. Going to a Florida team that is good, but not excellent, and just, I mean, Dart folded like a lawn chair under pressure.
That was insane.
Really ugly.
The interceptions were insane.
I mean, with that roster, that schedule, it's unbelievable that Ole Miss couldn't find. I mean, they literally needed to beat Florida and Mississippi State, and they were going to be in the playoff, and they missed it. They're not going to get in now, barring. I don't think there's any way they get in at this point. Alabama, I don't think they're dead, but they're probably not in a good spot now. Just not Bama-like from them. I mean, Oklahoma had Milroe in a padded cell.
Which was y'all's favorite? Kenny, what was your favorite upset? Ole Miss, A&M losing to Auburn, or Bama losing to Oklahoma? Which one was your favorite yesterday?
I'd have to say A&M Auburn. That was probably the most fun to watch just because it was so close and
Fair.
A&M made it a game, came back. Auburn really almost blew it. Questionable calls, not going for 2 right away. You maybe wanted to see that from Auburn, walk it off with the 2-point conversion. But then Mike Elko calling a timeout in the fourth quarter with barely any time left in Auburn, trying to scramble to the line. Just questionable stuff, but that's college football. It was an awesome weekend. I will say that, as someone that, wants to see this kind of chaos, it fed me. I was fed.
You were fed. The big winners of all this. Yeah, the big winners of all this is the Indiana Hoosiers. That team's dancing now.
They're safely in now. They were maybe out for all of 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was chaos. I really enjoyed it. I mean, Alabama, Oklahoma was kind of a horrible game, but it was another upset. And yeah, I mean, our SEC championship is set basically. It's probably going to be who do you guys got? Quick prediction time: Texas or Texas A&M? Do you think A&M pulls an upset?
I think Texas wins it. I think A&M's done. I know they'll get up for that game still. I think they're starting the wrong QB. I think Wegman is still the better option. But you can't go back to him now. I think Reed is good, but you can't go back to Wegman now. And I do think Wegman is probably better. And it's a little too late now.
A&M, Kenny?
I think A&M will make the game. It's the first time these two teams have played in over a decade.
Wow.
It's in College Station. You've seen that atmosphere in person, Payton too.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a game. I still have Texas coming out with this one.
I'm gonna pick A&M. I've been kind of riding with A&M. I'm gonna break the graphic and say A&M.
Hey, why not? These don't count for anything. You also thought Mississippi State would beat Mizzou at the beginning of the year.
I sure did.
He got confused with all the red teams. He meant South Carolina.
A lot of my takes have been just god awful. I said Oklahoma State was going to be a dark horse Big 12.
So did I.
Title favorite.
I said they were going to win it.
They don't have a win. They haven't won a game since like September.
Yeah, they haven't won a Big 12 game. I mean, they just benched Bowman. I mean, they closed the book on that. Gordon has been terrible.
I saw the.
I think a lot of my takes have been bad, but I think if you go back and look at my takes on the Mizzou schedule, I think a lot of them hold up. I remember saying that South Carolina would be a sleeper because they have so many athletes, and that came to pass.
Yeah, it's tough. I liked the meme someone made about Oklahoma State and Utah, and it was like, have you ever beaten a Big 12 team? And they were like, no, because we have 2 geriatric QBs or whatever.
Mm-hmm. There's my last one. UMass did make it a game against
Georgia,
if you don't look past like the first quarter. I did call that. I will also throw out there that UMass has played more games more teams in the SEC above 500 than Texas has played this season.
Wow.
There you go.
That's
a great stat. That's a great stat.
Hey, sorry, beaten. Or not even beaten. Played.
No,
played.
Just played. Yeah.
It'll be different though. On Saturday against Texas A&M, it will be 2-2.
It's for that reason why I don't want to hear a word about people complaining about Indiana anymore. That's my final take.
No, yeah,
Payton?
Correct. No, I had a question, but now I answered it in my own head.
Okay. All right. You got a joke too?
I sure do, Milton. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Guys, why did the drum go to bed?
It was beat.
Yeah.
Yup, it was beat. It was beat. Well done, Ken Dog.
Good job, Kenny.
Well done, Kentrell.
All right.
Bring the boom.
That'll do it. Boom.
In AEW.
That'll do it for Unwritten. We'll be back Friday. We'll have some basketball. We'll preview Arkansas. Fun one coming up for the old rivalry game. I'm so sad it's not on Friday though. I wish it was. I guess it kind of makes it easier for our schedule, but it really doesn't because we always record before Thanksgiving anyway. So I hope you enjoyed the Mississippi State game, and we'll be back on Friday to preview Arkansas.